The morning sunlight spilled across the marble floors of our bedroom, glinting off the diamond bracelet Ethan gifted me last anniversary, the same one I'd stopped wearing months ago. It felt heavy on my wrist today, a symbol of something that no longer sparkled. "Good morning, Your Highness," I teased softly, leaning against the doorframe as Ethan fixed his tie in front of the mirror. He didn't look up, just a faint nod, a perfunctory smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Morning," he murmured. That was it. One word. No kiss, no warmth, just distance. I'd gotten used to it, or at least I told myself I had. Ethan Addams, the crown prince, the man everyone envied me for marrying, was slowly becoming a stranger in my own home. I walked to the vanity, pretending not to notice how his gaze never lingered on me anymore. "You're heading to the ministry again." "Meeting with the board," he replied. His tone was clipped, like he was talking to an assistant, not his wife. I smiled anyway. "Dinner tonight." "We'll see." I nodded, pretending that didn't sting. That's what I did best, pretending. Pretending I didn't notice how late he came home. Pretending not to smell the faint trace of another woman's perfume on his suits. Pretending that I wasn't terrified of what it all meant. After he left, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the door he just closed behind him. The silence that followed was deafening. My phone buzzed, a message from Mia, my best friend since university. "Mia, Lily, I need to tell you something. It's about Sophia Stone." My chest tightened. The name felt like a ghost from another life, one I thought was buried when Ethan married me. Sophia Stone, Ethan's first love. The woman who disappeared abroad 3 years ago, the one I thought I'd replaced. "Lily, what about her?" The typing bubble blinked for what felt like forever before her reply came. "Mia, she's back, and she's working with Ethan again." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The bracelet on my wrist suddenly felt suffocating. Of course, that's why he'd been so distant lately. That's why he'd been coming home late, smelling faintly of white roses, Sophia's favorite. My throat went dry. The perfect picture of our royal marriage had already begun to crack, and now I could hear it breaking. Me and the silence. Me and the ache of knowing his heart had already gone back to her. The palace halls had never felt so quiet. It wasn't the peaceful kind of quiet, it was the kind that made you feel watched, judged, like even the walls knew something you didn't. Ethan had been leaving earlier every morning and coming home past midnight. I told myself he was busy. The company was transitioning, the board needed him, the crown had its duties. But a part of me, the insecure part I hated, whispered otherwise. That whisper had a name. Sophia Stone. I didn't see her. I didn't have to. Her presence was everywhere, in the hushed tones of the staff, the pitying glances from socialites at events, the way Ethan avoided my eyes when I mentioned her. That evening, I decided to wait up for him. I brewed a pot of tea and sat in the living room, the clock ticking past midnight. The tea went cold long before the sound of his footsteps finally echoed down the hall. He froze when he saw me still awake. "Lily, it's late." "I could say the same to you," I replied lightly, though my smile didn't reach my eyes. "You've been coming home late a lot lately." He sighed and loosened his tie, fatigue etched across his face. "It's work. The transition's been complicated." "I heard Sophia Stone's back," I said softly. For a split second, his expression changed, something flickered there. Surprise, guilt, maybe both. "Who told you that?" "Mia." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he sat on the opposite end of the couch, elbows on his knees. "She's handling some PR for the company. It's nothing personal." "Nothing personal," I repeated, forcing a small laugh. "You mean the woman you were in love with for years?" He looked at me then, really looked, and the weariness in his eyes softened. "That was a long time ago, Lily. I married you. Doesn't that mean anything?" It did. It used to mean everything. But love wasn't a crown or a ring. It was attention, effort, time, all of which he'd been giving to his work. It was the kind of reassurance that should have comforted me, but it didn't, because promises didn't erase perfume. And maybe That was exactly what Sophia wanted. The rain came down in thin silver sheets, tracing rivers down the windowpane. I sat in the study, staring at the phone on the table like it was a ticking bomb. Ethan had left for yet another meeting. I didn't ask where. I was tired of asking questions that ended with soft apologies and colder nights. I was just about to turn off my phone when it lit up. An unknown number. For some reason, my stomach clenched. Unknown. Hello, Mrs. Addams, it's Sophia Stone. Her voice was smooth, elegant, and laced with the kind of confidence that came from knowing she could ruin you if she wanted to. For a second, I couldn't speak. Sophia, I managed finally. I didn't realize you had my number. Oh, I have many things, she said lightly, including reasons to talk to you. Are you free this afternoon? My fingers tightened around the phone. About what? A pause. I could hear the faint hum of cafe music behind her, the casual clink of a spoon against porcelain, as if this was just a friendly chat. About Ethan, she said, and about what's really going on. The air left my lungs. If this is some kind of misunderstanding. Oh, it's not, she interrupted softly. But you deserve to hear it from me. The truth, don't you want that? I hesitated. Every instinct screamed no. But curiosity, or maybe desperation, pushed me to say, where? Café Amora, 2:00. The line went dead. I stared at my reflection in the dark phone screen, my heart hammering. This could be a trap, a humiliation, or maybe I'd finally get the answers Ethan refused to give me. The cafe was quiet when I arrived, the kind of place where secrets like to be whispered. Sophia was already there, flawless as always, her long auburn hair cascading over her shoulder, lips curved into a knowing smile. Lily, she said warmly, as if we were old friends catching up. You look tired. Marriage must be hard work. I sat down across from her, keeping my voice steady. You said you wanted to talk about Ethan. Yes, she murmured, stirring her coffee. He's been under so much pressure lately, between the company and us. My pulse stumbled. Us. She met my eyes, calm, cruel. You don't have to pretend. He still loves me. Always has. The words hit like a slap. That's not true. She tilted her head, smiling sweetly. Then why do you think he spends his nights with me? My throat burned. I wanted to call her a liar, to walk away. But the seed of doubt she planted, rooted deep. Ethan wouldn't. Oh, he would. She leaned forward, voice soft, almost pitying. He's a man, Lily, a lonely one. You can't blame him for seeking comfort somewhere else. I stood, gripping my purse so tightly my nails dug into the leather. You're lying. Sophia's smile didn't waver. Maybe, but deep down, don't you already believe me? Her words followed me all the way home, haunting, poisonous. And for the first time, I wasn't sure I knew my husband at all. It started with dizziness. Just a faint sway when I stood up too fast, the kind I blamed on skipping breakfast or sleeping too little. But then came the nausea, the headaches, the way certain perfumes, especially white roses, made my stomach twist. At first, I thought it was stress. I'd been living on the edge of panic for weeks now, replaying Sophia's words until they hollowed me out. He still loves me. He spends his nights with me. Each time I heard them in my mind, I found another reason to doubt Ethan, another reason to lose sleep. By the end of the week, I couldn't take it anymore. I stopped by the pharmacy on my way home from the charity event, hat, glasses, the whole disguise. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was the prince's wife sneaking around like a criminal to buy a pregnancy test. Back at the palace, I locked myself in the bathroom, clutching the little box as if it might explode. My reflection stared back at me, pale skin, tired eyes, lips trembling. The timer beeped. 2 lines. My vision blurred. I sank to the floor, the test slipping from my hand. Pregnant. A tear slid down my cheek before I could stop it. It wasn't joy. It wasn't fear. It was something in between, something heavy, bittersweet, fragile. Ethan had always talked about children, about the future. When the company stabilizes, he'd said, when we have time. But now, he barely even looked at me. Would he care? Would he even believe it was his? The thought made my stomach churn. I pressed my hand against my abdomen, the smallest, stupidest smile breaking through the tears. "Hey there," I whispered shakily. "It's just you and me, okay?" The next morning, I tried to tell him. I rehearsed it in my head while he buttoned his cuffs. "Ethan, there's something I need to tell you." But before I could speak, his phone buzzed. He answered instantly. "Yes, Sophia." The name hit me like a punch. He turned slightly, lowering his voice. "No, I'll handle it myself, don't worry." When he hung up, I was still standing there, every word I wanted to say dissolving into silence. He gave me a distracted smile and kissed my forehead. A mechanical gesture, the kind people give out of habit, not affection. "I'll be late again tonight." I smiled weakly. "Of course." He left, and I sat there, one hand resting over my stomach, wondering how something so small could already make me feel so fiercely protective and so heartbreakingly alone. I had made up my mind. Today I would tell Ethan. No more overthinking, no more waiting for the right moment. There would never be one. He was in the study, reading through a stack of documents. His jacket hung off the back of the chair, and the faint smell of his cologne filled the room. I stood by the door for a moment, just watching him. My husband. My stranger. "Ethan," I said softly. He looked up, brow furrowing when he saw me. "Lily, what's wrong?" The question almost broke me. Once upon a time, he'd said it with genuine concern. Now it sounded more like a polite formality. There's something I need to tell you." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Can it wait? I'm in the middle of something important." "It can't," I said quickly, stepping closer. "Please, it's about—" His phone buzzed. He reached for it instantly. I froze. His entire face softened. "Sophia, yeah, I'm listening." The rest of my sentence died on my lips. He didn't even notice. He turned away from me, speaking in that low tone he reserved for business or things that mattered. I stood there, invisible in my own marriage, holding a secret that should have changed everything. He hung up after a few minutes, slipping the phone into his pocket like nothing happened. "Sorry, you were saying." I swallowed hard. Every ounce of courage I'd built up crumbled. "Nothing, it wasn't important." He nodded absently, already turning back to his papers. "I'll be home late again, don't wait up." "Right." He left the room, and I stood there in the silence he always left behind, a silence that pressed against my ribs until I could hardly breathe. My fingers brushed over my stomach. "He'll know soon," I whispered to the tiny life inside me. "He has to." But the truth was starting to taste bitter, because even as I said it, I wasn't sure I believed it anymore. Outside, thunder rolled again, low and distant, like a warning. And for the first time, I wondered if maybe this child wouldn't bring us together, but show just how far apart we already were. Every hallway whispered about Ethan's temper, about Sophia's sudden influence in the company, about me, the pitiful wife pretending not to notice. By now, the rumors were spreading faster than perfume. It started with a charity dinner. I was supposed to attend beside Ethan, but he canceled last minute, citing an emergency board meeting. Except he wasn't at the boardroom. Someone had seen him leaving a restaurant with Sophia Stone. I didn't want to believe it. I told myself there must be a reason, that maybe they were discussing company strategy, that Ethan would never. My phone buzzed. "Sophia Stone, still waiting for you to wake up and realize you're just the name on his paperwork." I stared at the message, my heart hammering. Before I could reply, another text followed. "Sophia Stone, you look pale lately. Should I send you some vitamins? Or congratulations, maybe?" My blood went cold, she knew. That afternoon, Ethan came home early, for once. His tie was loosened, his expression tired but tense. "Lily," he said, his tone clipped. "I heard you called my assistant asking about Sophia's schedule. What were you thinking?" "I was thinking," I said, forcing calm into my voice, That maybe my husband should be the one explaining why his ex knows more about his day than I do. He groaned, pinching the bridge of his nose. Not this again. Lily, I don't have time for. For me, I cut in sharply. You never do. His gaze hardened. Do you have any idea what kind of pressure I'm under? The board's breathing down my neck. I'm taking over as CEO, and you. And me, my voice trembled. I'm just the wife you forgot existed. His silence said everything. I felt something inside me crack, not loudly, but deeply, like glass giving up after too much weight. Ethan, I whispered, I'm trying to tell you something important. Not now, he snapped, his tone sharp enough to make me flinch. Please, Lily. I can't deal with your insecurities, on top of everything else right now. He regretted it instantly. I saw it in the way his eyes softened, in the way his shoulders sagged. But the damage was done. I turned away, blinking back tears. Don't worry, you won't have to deal with me much longer. Lily, wait. I didn't. I walked out before he could fix it with another tired apology. Outside, the night air was cool, sharp, grounding. My hands trembled as I placed them over my stomach. The baby deserved peace, not a battlefield for its parents' silence. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Sophia Stone, still think he's worth fighting for. I stared at it until my vision blurred. Then, with shaking fingers, I deleted the message, but her words clung to me long after the screen went dark. Because no matter how much I tried to convince myself otherwise, I was starting to believe her. The invitation came in a neat white envelope, pressed between the pages of a magazine left on my desk. No sender name, no seal, just 2 words written in elegant handwriting I'd recognize anywhere. Lunch, SS. I should have torn it up. I should have thrown it in the fire and never looked back. But curiosity, or maybe the quiet desperation of a woman who'd run out of ways to be heard, made me go. The restaurant was quiet and private, the kind of place where people with secrets came to trade them. Sophia was already there when I arrived, a vision in ivory silk. She looked effortlessly perfect, like someone who never had to try to win. Lily, she greeted, that same honeyed smile curving her lips. I wasn't sure you'd come. I sat across from her, my fingers tightening around my purse. You didn't give me much of a choice, did you? Her eyes sparkled with amusement. I suppose not. She waved to the waiter, then turned back to me. You look tired. I can't imagine how exhausting it must be to keep pretending. Pretending. That Ethan still loves you. She said it so casually it almost didn't sting. Almost. I didn't take the bait. If you called me here to insult me, save your breath. Oh, Lily, she sighed, leaning forward, her tone soft, pitying. You poor thing, I didn't call you here to fight. I came to make you an offer. She reached into her bag and slid a small envelope across the table. Inside was a check, a lot of zeros. 50 million, she said. That's enough to rebuild your life, pay off your family's debts, and never think about the Addams name again. I stared at her, stunned. You're serious? She smiled. Ethan doesn't want to hurt you, you know. He feels guilty. But he and I, we belong together. We always have. You're standing in the way of something inevitable. My chest burned, but I forced a laugh. You think money can erase a marriage? Her expression didn't change. It can erase the pain, and frankly, you could use the relief. I opened my mouth, to refuse, to throw the check in her smug face, but then her next words stopped me cold. I'm pregnant, Lily. The world tilted. You're lying. I wish I were, she said sweetly, resting a hand over her flat stomach. But Ethan will have to take responsibility, won't he? It's better for everyone if you bow out gracefully. My vision swam. I wanted to scream, to accuse her of fabricating everything, but the part of me that still loved Ethan was too terrified to find out if she was telling the truth. Sophia's tone softened again, but her eyes glinted like glass. You've always been so dignified. Don't lose that now. Take the offer. Walk away with your pride intact. I sat there frozen, the walls closing in. Outside, flashes of cameras went off, photographers catching sight of the prince's wife and his infamous first love sharing lunch. Sophia turned to the noise, smirking faintly. "Oh dear, I do hope the tabloids don't get the wrong idea." Her voice was pure venom disguised as silk. By the time I stood to leave, my hands were shaking. The envelope with the check felt like a curse burning a hole in my purse. And somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered the cruelest question of all. What if she's telling the truth? I don't remember driving home. The world outside the windshield was a blur. Streetlights melting into streaks of gold and rain, my reflection flickering between every tear-stained blink. When I reached the palace, I didn't go inside right away. I sat in the car, fingers clenched around my purse, that cursed envelope still inside. $50 million. Sophia's smirk, her hand over her stomach. "I'm pregnant, Lily." The words wouldn't stop echoing. By the time I made it upstairs, I was shaking so badly I could barely fit the key into the bedroom door. The moment I closed it, everything I'd been holding in came crashing out. The humiliation, the anger, the heartbreak that had no place to go. I ripped the envelope open and stared at the check. The paper was smooth and clean, perfect, like Sophia. Like everything I'd never been in Ethan's eyes. "Congratulations, Sophia," I whispered bitterly. "You win." I threw the check onto the floor, then sank to my knees, clutching the edge of the bed as if it could anchor me. The sob that tore out of me didn't sound human. It was the sound of something breaking, quietly, completely. Why, my voice shook. Why wasn't I enough? There was no answer, just the empty echo of a home that had never really felt like mine. I pressed my hands to my stomach, tears spilling faster. "I'm sorry," I whispered to the tiny life inside me. "You deserved a father who loved your mother, not one who doesn't even look at her anymore." The phone buzzed again. Ethan's name lit up the screen. For a fleeting moment, I wanted to answer, to scream, to demand an explanation, to beg him to tell me Sophia was lying. But I didn't. I turned the phone face down. And in that silence, something inside me hardened. If Sophia thought I'd crawl away quietly, she was wrong. Maybe I couldn't have Ethan's heart anymore, but I would walk out with my head high, and I would make sure the world saw a queen, not a broken wife. The next morning, I woke up with puffy eyes and a resolve made of steel. I slipped on my sunglasses, wrapped a silk scarf around my hair, and drove to the most expensive district in the city. If the tabloids wanted a story, I'd give them one. At the first boutique, the staff nearly tripped over themselves when they recognized me. "Mrs. Addams, we didn't expect." "I'll take the winter collection," I interrupted calmly, my voice steady, cold. "All of it." By the third store, my credit card, Ethan's credit card, had bought enough jewelry to blind an entire press conference. Diamonds, emeralds, gold, little weapons of vanity that felt like armor against humiliation. Every swipe of the card was a quiet rebellion, a promise that I wouldn't leave empty-handed. The paparazzi followed soon after, snapping photos as I stepped out of the last store. Shopping bags swinging from my wrists like trophies. I gave them a soft smile, not sad, not angry, just untouchable. If the world thought I was heartbroken, they wouldn't see it. By the time I returned home, the check Sophia gave me was still lying on the floor where I'd left it. I picked it up and placed it neatly on the table beside my wedding ring. "Let's see how it feels," I murmured, when I finally stopped waiting for him. That night, I drafted the divorce papers. My hand didn't shake once. I didn't wait for Ethan that morning. His side of the bed was untouched, the sheets still cold. It didn't surprise me anymore, not the empty pillow, not the quiet house, not the way my reflection looked more like a stranger's wife than myself. I dressed in silence, carefully, deliberately, the beige dress. The pearl earrings he once said made me look too soft for this world. Maybe I was. The divorce papers were already signed. My handwriting looked steady, but my hands had been shaking the whole time. When I reached the company headquarters, Ethan's secretary, Daniel, looked startled to see me. "Mrs. Addams." "Lily," I corrected gently, placing the brown envelope on his desk. Please give this to him." He hesitated. "May I ask?" "No," I said, forcing a smile that hurt my cheeks. "He'll understand." And then I left before Daniel could ask another question. Because if I stayed a second longer, I might have fallen apart right there in the middle of Ethan's empire, the one I'd quietly built my heart around. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and soft apologies. The nurse handed me a clipboard, and I filled in the form with practiced numbness. Name, Lily Addams. Reason for visit, termination of pregnancy. The pen left a smear of ink on my thumb. I stared at it for a moment, at the small, messy evidence of my choice. I'd told myself this was mercy. Mercy for a child who deserved love, not scandal. Mercy for my family, who'd be torn apart if the truth ever came out. Mercy, even for Ethan, who shouldn't be trapped in a marriage already crumbling to dust. But mercy shouldn't hurt this much. I was led into the waiting room, the faint hum of machines filling the silence. My heart was heavy, but my eyes were dry. I'd run out of tears days ago. When the nurse called my name, I stood up slowly. Every step toward that sterile room felt like a goodbye I hadn't spoken aloud. I sat on the edge of the bed, fingers gripping the sheets, and whispered under my breath, "I'm sorry." And just as the doctor entered, the door burst open. "Lily." The voice froze me mid-breath. Ethan stood in the doorway, rain still dripping from his coat, eyes wide and wild, like he'd run straight from a storm. For a heartbeat, I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. His gaze dropped to the consent form in my trembling hand, and all the color drained from his face. "Tell me," he said hoarsely, stepping closer. "Tell me you're not doing this." But I couldn't. Because I already had. I couldn't lift my eyes. The sound of his footsteps filled the sterile room, each one heavy, deliberate, furious, yet shaking. Ethan stopped right in front of me. "Lily," he said, low and raw, "what the hell are you doing here?" I tried to speak, but my throat refused to work. The paper in my hand fluttered, the consent form he had already seen. He snatched it from me, reading the words as if they were knives. "Termination of," his voice broke. "No, you're not doing this." He turned to the doctor. "Cancel it now." The doctor looked between us awkwardly. "Mr. Addams." "Now," he repeated, his tone sharp enough to slice through steel. The doctor nodded quickly and slipped out, leaving just the two of us, me, trembling on the hospital bed, and him, standing there like his world had just split open. "Ethan," I whispered, "please, don't make this harder." He looked at me like I'd said something blasphemous. "Harder? Lily, you're ending our child's life. How could you?" "Because I had to." The words tore out of me before I could stop them. My voice cracked, and suddenly everything I'd been holding in came spilling out. "Because I can't keep pretending I'm strong enough to fight everyone anymore. Not your family, not the rumors, not Sophia." He froze at the name, but I didn't stop. "She came to me," I said, trembling. "She told me she's pregnant. She said you'd marry her once I left, that your mother was already planning it. And then your mother offered me money to walk away. Do you know how that felt?" Ethan's jaw clenched. "My mother." "Don't," I whispered. "Don't defend them, I know what I heard." He raked a hand through his hair, the muscles in his arms tense. "You should have come to me." "And say what?" I cut him off, tears spilling freely now. "That I was afraid, that I thought you didn't love me anymore, that every time you left I wondered if you were going to her." My voice cracked. "I didn't want to trap you with a child you didn't want, Ethan. I didn't want to be the pathetic wife who clings while the world laughs." He took a step closer, his voice soft but breaking. "You think I didn't want this child?" I laughed bitterly through my tears. "You didn't even notice me anymore." That stopped him, completely. For a long moment, he said nothing. His expression shifted from anger to confusion to something much quieter. Guilt. Then, without warning, he sank to his knees before me. "Lily," he said, his voice trembling now, "I wasn't with Sophia, not once. I swear to you. I've been working nonstop on the acquisition project to prove to the board that I could handle the company. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to drag you into the chaos. I thought," his voice cracked. "I thought you were tired of hearing about business." My breath hitched. You weren't with her." He shook his head, eyes glassy. "Never." The world tilted. All the nights I'd spent doubting him, all the pain I'd swallowed, all the choices I'd made out of fear, they hit me at once. I covered my face with my hands and sobbed. I destroyed everything. He reached up, gently prying my hands away. His touch was trembling, desperate. "No, you were hurting. I should have seen it. I should have been there." The tears wouldn't stop. Neither of us moved for a long time, just the sound of our hearts beating too fast, too loud, too close. When I finally found my voice, it came out as a whisper. "I thought I lost you." "You almost did," he murmured, his forehead resting against mine. "But I'm right here, and I'm not letting go again." The world returned in fragments, soft light filtering through white curtains, the steady rhythm of a beeping monitor, and the faint scent of antiseptic mixed with something warm. My eyelids felt heavy, my body weightless. For a terrifying moment, I couldn't remember where I was or why my heart felt like it had been shattered and glued back together all at once. Then I heard a voice. "She's awake." I turned my head weakly, and there he was, Ethan. His shirt was wrinkled, tie loosened, eyes red as if he hadn't slept all night. Beside him sat my mother, her usually calm expression tight with worry. She reached for my hand immediately. "Lily, sweetheart, thank God." My throat felt dry. What happened? Ethan exhaled shakily, rubbing the back of his neck. "You fainted before they could, before anything happened. The doctor said your blood pressure dropped suddenly." I blinked slowly, piecing the memory together. The cold hospital lights, the sound of his voice, the moment everything went black. My hand instinctively drifted to my stomach. There was silence for a beat too long. Then my mother squeezed my hand gently. "You're still pregnant, darling." The words hit me like a wave. "I what?" My voice cracked, disbelief wrapping around the syllables. Ethan's eyes softened as he leaned closer. "The doctor stopped the procedure the moment I arrived. He said it was early enough. Nothing irreversible had been done." My heart stuttered. "So the babies?" "Safe," Ethan said, his voice breaking on the word. "You both are." Something inside me gave way. Tears spilled down my cheeks, silent and unstoppable. Relief, guilt, confusion, it all collided until I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. Ethan reached out hesitantly, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "Lily, I'm so sorry, for everything, for not seeing how much you were hurting, for letting you believe you were alone." I wanted to be angry, to remind him of all the nights I'd cried myself to sleep, but I couldn't. Because in that moment, all I saw was the man I fell in love with broken, trembling, and holding my hand like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. My mother stood quietly, watching us, her expression unreadable. After a moment, she whispered, "I'll give you two a moment," and quietly left the room. The door clicked shut, and the silence stretched between us. Ethan sat down beside me, his thumb gently tracing circles on the back of my hand. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away," he murmured, "but I need you to know I never betrayed you, not once." I looked at him, at the exhaustion in his eyes, the sincerity trembling in his voice. "Then, why didn't you tell me, Ethan, about the takeover, the meetings, the nights away?" He sighed. "Because I thought I was protecting you from the stress. I didn't want you to worry while I was fighting the board to secure my position. But I should have realized that silence can wound worse than lies." For the first time in weeks, I saw the truth in his face, raw, unfiltered. I reached for his hand, our fingers brushing tentatively. "I wanted to believe you," I whispered. "I still do." His grip tightened just slightly, a promise in the smallest gesture. "Then start with that. Just believe me now." I swallowed hard, tears burning again. "What happens next?" Ethan looked down at my hand resting over my stomach, then back at me. His voice softened. "We start over, for you, for our baby, and this time I won't let anything or anyone come between us." Outside, the world kept moving, the faint sound of rain on the windows, the hum of distant footsteps. But inside that room, everything felt still. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe again. The night Lily fainted, I thought I'd lost everything. The drive to the hospital was a blur, red lights, rain-slick streets, the sound of my heartbeat pounding louder than the sirens. I don't remember parking. I barely remember breathing. All I could think about was her voice cracking when she said, "I had to." And the white paper in her hand, the consent form that made my world stop spinning. Now, sitting outside her room hours later, watching the faint pulse on the monitor through the glass, I realized something ugly. I had built an empire, but I couldn't even hold onto the woman who built my heart. It had all started months ago. The board had been pressuring me to finalize the merger with the Stone Group, a deal that would secure my position as CEO and make our company untouchable in the market. Sophia's family owned key patents we needed. When she returned from abroad as the representative for her family, I should have seen it coming. The whispers, the stories, the deliberate smirks from people who lived for gossip. But I didn't care. All I saw was a business deal. Until I realized Sophia saw something else entirely. She started showing up uninvited at the office, at charity events, even outside meetings, always smiling, always talking about the past. I ignored it, politely at first, but the moment she realized Lily didn't know about the deal, she weaponized it. The day she came to my office with that smug expression, I should have fired her on the spot. "Still pretending you're not the same Ethan who used to chase me," she'd said. "Funny, you run a company now, but you're still predictable." I'd stood, voice low. "That was years ago, Sophia, and it meant nothing." She laughed, stepping close enough for her perfume to sting. "Does your wife know that?" I'd turned away, refusing to give her the reaction she wanted, but she kept talking. "You're a terrible liar, Ethan. You've been avoiding your wife lately. She must be wondering why." And that's when I knew she wasn't just after the deal. She wanted to ruin what Lily and I had. When I got home that night, Lily was already asleep on the couch, the TV flickering softly. She looked peaceful, but there was something off, a kind of quiet hurt that clung to her even in sleep. I reached out to touch her hand, stopped halfway, and told myself I'd fix it after the project ended. Biggest mistake of my life. A week later, I got a call from Daniel, my secretary. "Sir, Mrs. Addams dropped something off for you." The divorce papers. I remember staring at the envelope for a long time, my hands numb. Every signature, every mark, her handwriting, steady and graceful even while her world must have been falling apart. And then Daniel told me where she went. To the hospital. Everything after that is a haze, the panic, the sprint through sterile halls, her name echoing in my head. When I finally saw her, sitting alone in that cold white room, I thought I was too late. When she fainted, I caught her before she hit the floor. Her hand was cold, too cold. And that was the moment I realized I'd done this. Not Sophia. Not anyone else. Me. Now, back in the present, I walked into Lily's hospital room quietly. She was asleep again, her breathing even, one hand resting protectively over her stomach. I sat down beside her and whispered, "I swear I'll fix this. I'll fix everything." I took out my phone and typed a message to my legal team. "Terminate the Stone deal, effective immediately." Then another message to Daniel. "Find everything Sophia Stone has done. Every lie, every fake document, every bribe. I want proof before sunrise." By the time Sophia Stone stepped into my office that morning, the storm was already waiting for her. She walked in like she owned the place, all white silk and lipstick the color of sin, smiling that same poisonous smile she always wore when she thought she'd won. "Ethan," she purred, setting her purse on the table. "You look tired, busy nights." I didn't bother returning the smile. "Sit down." Her brow arched, amused. "Oh, you sound serious." "I am." She sat, crossing her legs like this was another game, another round of her endless flirting. "Let me guess. You're here to tell me your wife's finally out of the picture." My silence stretched long enough for her to smirk. That was her mistake. I slid a file across the table. Thick, bound, deadly. She glanced at it, curious, then flipped it open. The color drained from her face. "Your accounting trail," I said quietly. "Wire transfers from the Stone Trust to 2 of my board members, the same members who have been pushing for the merger, the same ones who conveniently started rumors about me and you." Sophia's lips parted, but no sound came out. I leaned back, eyes cold. "You bribed them, Sophia. Tried to manipulate a corporate deal with falsified documents and fake investor claims. I have proof and witnesses." Her fingers twitched. You can't prove any of this in court." "Oh, I can," I said, voice calm but lethal. "And when I do, your family's company will lose every contract it has with Addams Holdings. The board already voted this morning to blacklist the Stone Group from all future partnerships." Her composure cracked. "You wouldn't dare." "I would," I interrupted. "You came into my life pretending this was business, but you made it personal. You used my wife's kindness to hurt her, spread lies, and tried to destroy a marriage that never involved you." Sophia stood abruptly, anger twisting her pretty features. "You think you can just erase me, Ethan, after everything we had?" "We had nothing," I said flatly. "What you loved was the version of me you could control, the one too naive to see what you really were." Her hand trembled. "And Lily, you're going to keep playing house with that pathetic." "Watch your mouth." My voice dropped, quiet but sharp enough to cut through her words. "You'll never say her name again." For the first time, she looked scared, really scared. I stood, walking toward the door. "Security will escort you out. You'll find your keycards deactivated, your name erased from all joint contracts, and your reputation, well, consider it bankrupt." She tried to grab my arm as I passed. "Ethan, please, you don't understand." I stopped, meeting her eyes one last time. "No, Sophia, I finally do." Her expression twisted, desperation flickering beneath the rage, but I didn't stay to watch her crumble. As I stepped out of the office, Daniel was waiting. "Sir." "Have the PR team release the report by noon," I said, "and make sure Lily never sees any of this." He nodded, understood. Later that evening, I drove home. The house was quiet again, but this time it didn't feel empty. It felt like something waiting to be rebuilt. Lily was asleep on the couch, curled up under a blanket, one hand resting protectively over her stomach. I stood there for a long moment, watching her breathe, watching peace settle where fear used to live. Then I whispered, "It's over, Lily. She can't hurt us anymore." And for the first time in months, I finally felt like I could breathe too.